As noble citizens, we must bypass a life of dormancy and vice to pursue the generative endeavor of a hard day's work. The benefits of these pursuits are not secured by chance or charity, but through the merit of your character and the firmness of your convictions. It is you who are planting the seeds of trees whose shade you know you shall never see.
All right, here we go. Today we are doing a light cast today. We've got just me, Vane, your host, and Crocus is here with us. And,
the Crocus with the mostest.
The Crocus with the mostest. And we've got a short staff today, which is okay, because we've got plenty of news to get to anyway.
I can't wait. You've already played a clip for me just to test the audio that made me want to rip my hair out, so this should be fun.
Yeah, so we have that to start with. We were listening to Rick Scott, and yeah, that definitely will make you want to rip your hair out.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, is as good a place as any to start with if we want. I don't really have a particular order. I just have a big running list of all the horrible stuff that's been going on. So
should we give I know you put it on the episode itself. Should we also tell people verbally what the date is now in case anything changes on any of this news?
That would definitely be good. Today is it's Sunday, May 25th, and we're doing our late May news update with a short crew, but it'll be packed full of clips to make up for it. So here we've got Rick Scott talking about the Medicare bill, which has unfortunately just passed in the House and will likely be modified by the Senate. But after months of long deliberation, this horrible bill that's austerity and just stripping the state to its bare minimum is it's here, and it's definitely going to be very unpopular.
Yeah, didn't they think? I feel like there was a lot of discourse about how this bill would never pass or was going to be held up forever, and then it kind of slipped through quicker than anybody expected. Is that true? That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, I think that definitely was the conversation, that this bill had so many holdouts. It had Thomas Massie and the Freedom Caucus opposing it. So it had all these barriers, and it took a very long time now, longer than 100 days, I think, that they've been deliberating over this one. And it finally passed, but a big part of why Thomas Massie and the Freedom Caucus wouldn't support it is because they wanted deeper cuts to Medicare, and this bill ultimately now has come out with a larger deficit than before, which is not what they had promised. They'd promised to make cuts, but they also approved a 13% military spending increase,
of course,
which
naturally
now brings the military deficit up to over $1 trillion.
Yeah.
And then they also wanted to keep in these massive permanent tax cuts for the wealthy. And I believe that in 8 years, they're trying to defer the political punishment of it for popularity. So they're calculating that within 8 years, the Democrats would probably get the House back and ultimately win the presidency, and that they would basically be in power by the time 8 years is up, and the deepest cuts end up happening. So there's groups like Thomas Massie and the Freedom Caucus that want to have the deeper cuts right now and don't understand why there can't be deep cuts to Medicare right now. That's what they're complaining.
I feel like this bill has opened up a window in my mind to all the other times that budgets have been passed where many things didn't take effect until several years later. I never really thought about the fact that they were doing that on purpose. Like I always like naively assumed it was because they needed more time to like get things ready or whatever. And I'm sure there's an element of that, but
I don't think it's usually. I think, unfortunately, when in doubt, start to assume the most cynical reason.
Yeah. It seemed, I mean, it's very clear because everything starts in like, or like whatever the negative part is, it's effective 2028. Like every single one. I read through like all the stuff.
And because all of it relies on basically the idea of trickle-down economics or voodoo economics, which is that you can float a deficit for as long as you want.
Imaginary economics.
Yeah, so it's just like kick the can down the road, basically, and hope that the actual bill becomes a problem for a future party, a future administration, essentially. Yeah, there's some charts. There's a chart I'll include that shows the distribution that's taken away now in cuts to Medicare and the social safety net is actually less than the tax cuts for the wealthy for people with incomes above 500K. So they actually have $1.1 trillion in cuts, essentially, for the highest income earners, while they have 300 billion cuts in SNAP and 800 billion cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, which hits the absolute lowest people, essentially. So that's their one-for-one swap there in the deficit. The debt they needed to be able to make up for this $1.1 trillion hole in the deficit in tax cuts for the rich, and they offset that by making cuts to SNAP and Medicaid.
And then they're still allowed every time they run for office to go out there and talk about how they need to save money for the government and like cut like they literally it makes me so mad. So, and also, isn't there like an effort to try to get that tax cut, that portion sort of not counted as part of the money that they're losing? Like they're trying to make it.
Yeah.
To try,
you're right.
try
I did
to, like,
hear about that. There's a funny math thing that they're trying to do, essentially more of what is voodoo economics, which I don't know if you know the story behind that term, but that's George H.W. Bush said that. I think I've said that in a previous episode, but George H.W. Bush coined the term voodoo economics because he studied economics and was basically grew up under the Keynesian orthodoxy and learned, just like Richard Nixon said, we're all Keynesians now. He learned that the way that money actually worked is not that it's fixed to a hard currency, and that basically everything that they thought they had learned about the orthodoxy of money under the gold standard was wrong. And he grew up under that time. And essentially the people in the Reagan orbit started saying, yeah, but you can just start cutting taxes for no reason. And you don't need any justification for it. As long as you get people to believe that it's good, then you can sustain that building deficit forever. And it makes people happy to give them tax cuts, essentially. So just don't get caught with the bill.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, basically guys who grew up under that old orthodoxy of Keynesian economics under the New Deal, like George H.W. Bush, knew that this was all bullshit. And he called it voodoo economics because he knew that he was just going along with this essentially bad faith argument that wasn't really backed by any academic or theoretical worth. But as long as people all decided to go along with it, then they could get away with gaining popularity, cheap popularity, essentially, in the short term before the bill caught up with them. And that's the whole mentality.
Kind of like a sort of a Ponzi scheme type of thing.
Yeah, definitely a Ponzi scheme. And like even what the most cynical fiscal conservative libertarians would say about things like saying Social Security is a Ponzi scheme
Yeah.
or things like that. Someday the bill is going to catch up to you. And that you could very much say is the case also with tax cuts when they're not really justified. And the very first one to do it was actually JFK, who was a Democrat liberal president. He dropped the highest tax bracket down from 91% to around 85% and got a big boost. And that was still understood at the time as a Keynesian stimulus, that you're doing something marginal around the edges and capturing a little bit more wealth. And you can see the same kind of incrementalist changes taking place before the collapse of the Soviet Union too, experimenting with different ways.
Oh, and there it is again, the terrifying reemerging theme of every episode.
I know, I keep bringing it back, but we are going to have to do a close analysis of the collapse of the Soviet Union at some point.
Yeah, I think so. I wonder if it might be fun to also do. I feel like sometimes I just request episodes of things I don't feel like researching myself, but it might be fun to do a deficit episode at some point too, just like about the national debt.
Yeah, so spoiler for the big audience that we've cultivated on the Patreon, the following week that we're doing is going to be on hopefully the issue of free speech. And then, in case you haven't caught on to the pattern that we're doing with the show, we're doing a news report every other week, and then in the in-between weeks, we're doing a topical discussion that's only for our Patreon subscribers as part of the forbidden courses. So subscribe right now if you want to get basically half of the episodes that we're doing that aren't going out to the public at this time. And so maybe on the following one, we've talked for a while about doing a deficit episode or a gold standard, gold bug episode, something like that. And I think it's definitely about time after the free speech one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should definitely do it.
Oh, can we go to this Rick Scott quote now that we were previewing? Is that the one we were previewing earlier?
Yeah, definitely. This is Rick Scott telling people that the new work standards being imposed on Medicare and Medicaid recipients through this new bill, the congressional big beautiful bill as they're calling it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is kill me please. And that's another thing that's just awful. The Trumpification of every bill and having to give it a baby name like that everybody is actually referring to at this point in a little baby style to follow this man-child.
We're in the baby era. We're in America's baby era.
Yeah, we really are. The booming 20s of the baby era.
The baby brain era.
Yeah, baby brain era. All right, yeah, so here is Rick Scott telling people that these are not cuts and that they're actually just being forced to work, and that's not a change in their lifestyle. And if they decide not to work, that's not being forced in some way. This isn't some sort of compulsion, which is a great little example of the non-aggression principle. And goes to show how that's bullshit, honestly, when people say that our society isn't coercive to people.
Yeah. I know.
It's like threatening to take away someone's health care if they don't work themselves to death. And you think of the condition of a person who is most likely injured in some way, struggling to work 40-hour work weeks as it is, being forced now to potentially re-injure an injury that they have now. And this is apparently supposed to be the rest of their life, to have to foot the bills, essentially. And I've met people in my life that I know that are injured and have a chronic injury and have to work. And I imagine that this would only put the burden on them even more so. Means testing.
Yeah. I don't think I don't think they're directly the same thing, but I was just thinking about how I've heard about being on disability being very restrictive in terms of how much money you're allowed to have in your bank account, how many hours a week you're allowed to work, stuff like that. So like surely a lot of those same people are also on like Medicaid, right? So now they may have requirements that conflict with each other. They wouldn't be able to collect disability and be on Medicaid.
Yeah, and it's so funny you mentioned that because there's so many reactionaries who are like angry about the idea of like a Chinese social credit system and how invasive that is. And yet many of these people seem to be the same people who want means testing imposed on the poorest people and to make sure, mandatory drug testing on every single welfare recipient, watching all their bank accounts and making sure that they can't possibly use their electronic bank account to buy liquor or anything. I mean, I've heard of, like food stamps. You can only buy certain food products even at the grocery store.
And there's always fights over that and stuff. And like people are always judging other people's carts when they find out they're on food stamps. And it's always been invasive and absurd. And now it's getting like codified into law, basically.
Yeah, that seems awfully invasive, awfully like a social credit score type system. Yeah, so speaking of social credit score, here is Rick Scott, a guy who's stolen millions in Medicare fraud from the poorest people, who is saying that...
this person of all people
this person of all people to say this too. Yeah, just to add to the hair pulling that you've been doing. So yeah, here it is at long last, the clip we've been talking about.
The sticking points is this business about paying able-bodied 30-year-old men without dependents welfare with no work requirement. Why do some of your colleagues have a problem with that?
It doesn't make sense to me. Number one is if you don't want to work, you're the one that decided you don't want health care.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, Medicaid is supposed to be for children that don't have health care and people with chronic illness. I remember when my brother couldn't get health care, I grew up in public housing. Today, that child might not get it because of what these states are doing. They get more money to take care of able-bodied adults.
If you don't want to work, you're the one deciding that you don't want health care.
Yeah, this sounds very, very compulsory to me. Like gun to the head. Essentially, like work or die.
Yeah.
And the same with when they take away like any type of regulations on your medicine prices. Like, these same people want to say that capitalism is this non-coercive system based on property relations.
Right, but if you are not a sufficiently good worker, you don't deserve a health care or food, obviously.
Yeah, right.
Like that's the message pretty much across the board. I've actually also been thinking about the childless part of this a lot because most of these new exceptions that they're adding with the work requirements, who has work requirements on them, places where they like raised age thresholds for like to qualify for certain things, it only applies to people who do not have children. So they're also like doing this weird side, along with all the stupid, absurd direct incentives to have children, which we've heard about before, and some that are in this bill too. Like they're also doing this sidelong, like economic encouragement to have children, It's just all very like pro-natalist along with everything else.
Yeah, it's so crazy, all the mixed messages that they send to people.
Yeah.
Like the contradictions of just saying like, oh, we're the party of family values and not wanting to give people like sick time or like paid family leave or maternity leave or paternity leave.
Free
for any
child
of these
care.
like basic rights.
Affordable child care.
Affordable or universal child care. Yeah, all this stuff. And it's just crazy how like disconnected they actually are from the needs of the average person.
There's so much of the stuff I think about it. So much of what I think about every time I hear clips like that is like, just like, we know we don't have to live like this. Like there's so many places in the world where people don't live like this. And yet people act as if like, this is just like, there's so much learned helplessness or like enforced helplessness in the way that these things are discussed and like messaged in this country. Like things like healthcare, childcare, like all these like social safety nets we either refuse to set up or are trying desperately to dismantle,
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes me sad.
And then, yeah, with that disconnect that we were talking about from the needs of the voters too, I saw this good video recently with Harry. Do you know the guy's last name? Harry something?
Enton, I think.
Enton. Yeah, that sounds right. Harry Enton, who's on CNN, I believe. And he's their like lead pollster. Mm-hmm. But he does some really pretty good work, I think.
He used to be with 538. I remember. I used to listen to. This is so embarrassing. I used to be like very libbed up, and I used to listen to their podcast like every week leading up to the 2016 elections, and then
okay,
they didn't get that. Well, maybe they were righter than I thought, but either way, they pissed me off somehow, and I stopped watching. But Harry went to CNN eventually.
Yeah, I've been liking his work.
He's fun to listen to,
Yeah, he's fun to listen to. He's got a good, like, that New Jersey accent that he's got. That delivery he has is great and charismatic, I think. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, he's been delivering that data, that precious, precious data that everybody needs with the polls. And
he's a data guy.
Sometimes he's just spot on with that. And this one was interesting, talking about just how far off the Republicans are from the needs of the public right now.
Yeah, to quote Stephen A. Smith, they don't care. They don't care about those deficits. What are we talking about here? All right, let's take a look. Cut taxes, even if the deficit increases. Look at this. 60% overall say, cut those taxes, baby. What about Republicans? They're the ones who are supposedly so concerned over the deficit. But even there, 74% say cut taxes, even if the deficit increases. Both overall and Republicans, they don't care.
Yeah, so I have to tell you the audio cutout thing is happening again. So it seems like it only happens like when we're recording. But it goes in and out. Like I can...
On my end, that doesn't change because I'm even recording when we're testing. So that's so weird.
That's so weird.
I don't know how we can fix that, but we're going to keep trying to. And that brings us, I think, to the price hikes, which are also definitely coming.
They're here.
And yeah, they're here. As you've talked about in your line of work, you definitely get a insight on the price hikes before the public does. And as you said, the price hikes are here. And Walmart started to raise their prices. And so Trump tweeted, or he truthed or whatever. He truthed his own truth here. The truth as he sees it.
Yeah.
Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs as the reason for raising prices throughout the chain. Walmart made billions of dollars last year, far more than expected. Between Walmart and China, they should, as is said, eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers. And I think also that it's funny to think of this perhaps in a Bernie voice also, too. Walmart made billions of dollars last year, far more than expected. Between Walmart and China, they should, as is said, eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers.
Yeah. It sounds like it could be like when you put it like that. Like, yeah, it does sound like Bernie.
Yeah, it was just something I couldn't help but read in both voices and go back and forth. I don't know if you have that dialogue in your head of their voices at this point, but my impression's not very good. But
I mean, I could hear when you slipped into the Trump impression, so I feel like it's got to be somewhat accurate. I was thinking about if I should try one before you started reading, but I'm not going to. I've never tried, and this will not be the first place that I do. But But yeah,
It's
the
worth a try.
little, speaking of insider information, to give a little update, when the 90-day exception hit, word on the street, I don't know how common knowledge this is. I know people know they had meetings, but apparently Walmart and Target, it's not shocking, but apparently Walmart and Target got heads up by like 2 or 3 weeks that this was coming, that they were definitely, probably in those meetings, they were definitely going to drop the tariffs to around 30%. And so they booked up tons of containers. So now everybody that's not basically Walmart, Target, maybe like, I don't know what other big box retailers were in that meeting, is like scrambling for container space. So you're still going to see the whatever supply chain disruptions we already were expecting from the stuff that people put on pause. And then you're going to see prices going up like everywhere. Obviously, you're already seeing that. There's still going to be price increases, maybe not as much at Walmart because of this specifically, but they literally started, many big box stores started increasing their prices even before Trump came into office, like at the beginning of the year, sort of in anticipation of this, which is part of why I say it's already here. But then also every other retailer is having major trouble getting anything from China, let alone in the 90 days, like just getting anything. So there's going to be additional sustained supply chain issues, kind of like we saw in 2021, because like that's the degree of up that the supply chain is right now.
Yeah, I can only imagine there's a huge lag time on all of this.
Yeah.
Which the president doesn't seem to comprehend.
No.
That, like, after that Liberation Day that he had, we still haven't quite felt the consequences of that yet, I don't think.
We haven't,
but
and we will.
As you said,
there's just no undoing it now, So...
Yeah, right. There is no undoing it at this point. And even if he were to start apologizing this day and turning back on everything, there's still going to be a massive amount of price increases that just can't be undone at this point.
And that's not even taking into account like all the uncertainty that still exists. Like, yes, people were waiting for to see if the tariffs would come down, and now they have. But that's only for 90 days, and literally nobody knows what's going to happen 90 days from now. So there's still, like, it's still an incredibly bad business environment for, like, making plans, taking chances, investing, like things you would want people to be doing,
Yeah, because it's
for
still
growth.
Basically up to this guy.
Yeah.
Like, the whim of this guy who's trying to act like a king, essentially. To decide whether or not he's going to take the tariffs off. And as you said, there's going to be then like a 90-day delay on it. But yeah, I saw there's a huge list of companies that have announced price increases. And I have an article on that where it's like, Best Buy, Target, I think tons of local American outlets essentially have all announced that they're going to have to raise their prices already at this point.
Yep.
And then we also had the announcement that by Moody's to lower the U.S. credit rating for the first time since, I believe, 1948, which is another sign of economic problems coming up ahead.
I think it's fine. It doesn't seem bad to me.
Yeah, it doesn't seem bad that for the very first time we had our credit rating drop as the world's most powerful country with the best credit rating.
Yeah, well,
definitely doesn't.
Trump's going to fix it, I think. I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah,
he seems like he knows what he's doing, so.
That's what his people would like us to believe.
Yeah.
Then I think also on the other side, we have essentially the DNC or Jerry-tocracy.
Oh my God.
Which on that side basically just had the passing of Jerry Nadler, who everybody expected was likely going to die soon.
Rest in peace, Jerry.
Esophageal cancer. I guess rest in peace, yeah. But it's unfortunate because that bill that just passed by 215 to 214 by one vote in the House, technically his vote could have stopped that bill from passing.
Jerry, come on.
Yeah, this is just basically a warning of what can happen when you have a gerontocracy essentially forming. And speaking of the Soviet Union, again, bringing it back to that.
Oh, God.
The collapse of the Soviet Union really had a lot to do with less so the collapse of an economic system that was destined to fail, and more like real world personal issues such as personalities and failure to discipline the party over time and things like that. And essentially you have a dynamic that forms in any society of the older people who are established. Even in Russian society during the Soviet Union, the social elites were members of things like the Politburo, and they're generally older, and they generally put in people who are older, who they've seen how they govern, and there's no risk to putting the same people in over and over, or so they think. But again, here's the risk that you get.
That's exactly how the Democratic Party works, isn't it? They like, I'm not
Yeah,
being,
it's exactly the same.
I'm not,
and
like,
that's
not
the,
in like a
the
joking
risk
way.
you
Like,
run.
they have like a seniority system, right? In like the House.
Yeah.
Like, that's why they wouldn't put AOC in there.
Yeah, not in a joking way at all. It is like it forms a gerontocracy to have that seniority system where nobody's allowed to cut the line.
Yeah.
And that ended up happening in the Soviet Union. And they ended up having like the Brezhnev era. Brezhnev ruled for over 20 years, I think 24 years, before passing of health complications that happened to a 90-something-year-old guy who had multiple strokes. And they had just multiple of their general secretaries in a row were these really old people with crippling health issues that are essentially being propped up a lot like ours, like Weekend at Bernie's type stuff. And
Because we haven't even talked about Biden's cancer diagnosis yet, right? I see it on
yeah,
the
I was
headline.
getting to that. We talk about like how it's almost like a joke, but it's really not
Yeah.
that funny, honestly. The lengths that this party has to go to maintain these people at the top level for the cynical reason that they're not a risk to the powerful in society to keep these people over and over in power. But it's a risk to all of us to keep these people in. And that's what Jerry Nadler's death should serve as a reminder to us, that we're one vote shy of stopping that bill in the House. And his death literally could have been the tie-breaking vote.
Crazy.
And that's what happens. And we have Fetterman in there. We've had Feinstein.
Oh, yeah, all the
we have
Fetterman stuff. We
all
talked
kinds
about
of
that,
these
right?
people. Yeah, we talked about Fetterman and how he's essentially also being propped up, even though he's
Yep.
younger. But if he serves the donor class, they'll keep reelecting him over and over, even if he's going through a massive personal crisis and depression and mental health crisis. And it's like the people in power don't seem to care as long as these people vote
Yeah.
the way that they expect. And that's a cancer upon society, quite
Yeah.
literally.
I had not even considered the possibility of him being reelected, but like that actually it's possible.
Yeah, and I think that was the rot more than anything at the heart of the Soviet Union that caused it to collapse, because you had the whiplash of really old senior leadership, which there is a benefit to. You had many of these guys who were alive during the original Russian Revolution, and there was a benefit to knowing that these guys were trustworthy, that they really believed in the socialist cause. So there was less of a risk in that way. But when you're getting to the 1990s, and these are the same guys who are still being propped up, and they're having strokes and all kinds of health complications, and they're not finding a way to bring in younger leadership into the party, that's a problem. And then there was whiplash the other way when Gorbachev gets elected, and he's the youngest serving prime minister, which was done in exasperation, essentially, from having so many old leaders, sort of like JFK, it was an exciting moment to elect a younger guy, but his inexperience is really what collapses the Soviet Union. That you have the hard whiplash from long-term serving experienced people to now sudden young leadership. You can understand why there's a desire to have younger leadership.
Yeah.
But then you can see how that also leads to the collapse of a nation state. And that's really the problem more than the economic system, in my assessment.
I'm not always like on the train with you guys when you start talking about the similarities between the fall of the Soviet Union and like our current era. Like, it's not that I don't agree or believe it, but like I'm just not always that invested in thinking about it, I guess. But like comparative to you guys, but this particular, everything you just described, like it's like basically 2024, like that election. Like it's like you can so clearly see the parallels here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stop. You got to stop talking about it. It's making me so upset.
I've got to stop talking about the parallels. We got to move on to Biden's condition. So there was a doctor who did say that it's almost 100% likely that Biden had prostate cancer the whole time that he was in office, because you don't just have prostate cancer form overnight and reach the stage that it has reached, where it's reached the bone in Joe Biden.
So do you think that then, considering that it seems like they probably did know this long before we all did, do you think that they chose this moment specifically to cut the legs out from under this Jake Tapper expose book that came out like the same day? Do you
I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, I did hear about Jake Tapper's book, and I saw there was like a funny Jon Stewart bit on that where he made fun of, and I think last week tonight too, made fun of just how much the guy's been plugging his own book.
Yeah.
So, I've seen this book. I think everybody in the world has seen this book.
Yeah, he has been. I was paying little attention to it, but the reason I started was because he was also getting a ton of backlash for it I'm sure before this, but especially like I think it came out on the 20th. And then Biden maybe announced like that weekend, or I don't know what date he actually announced it, but it was like right around the same time. And people were literally calling the publisher, trying to get them to like delay the book or cancel the book, because they'd said the Biden or busters decided it was really disrespectful to publish this now that he's got colon cancer or whatever. But I did watch an interview with between Jake Tapper and Ezra Klein about the book, and it's actually like I'm still finding new things to be shocked about when it comes to the degree of cover up and self-deception, as well as public-facing deception, and like complicity from all different corners, and like the degree of lost that he was from like probably before, yes, definitely before he was even elected.
Right.
So
yeah, it has undertones of like the Watergate scandal and access journalism, like where the government is feeding the line essentially to a key press member. And that definitely seems to be the case, like with Bob Woodward during the Watergate scandal. And Woodward had a long past, actually, that goes back quite a long way to CIA channels, and essentially was an access journalist, basically, for the CIA to leak at the right moment when the Watergate scandal blew up. And yeah, it kind of, to me, feels similar, that it's a scandal that was waiting in the works to be released for a little while, and was waiting for the right journalist to drop it with a lot of prestige, like Jake Tapper.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But yeah, then there's also this cancer expert said that Biden his cancer was he definitely had it during the presidency. So I have that. And then there's been some talk after among the Trump orbit that's been very insensitive, I would say, about about Biden's cancer.
Which is so unlike them.
Yeah, just so unlike them to be disrespectful at a time like this.
I mean, yeah, I'm not like personally in mourning about the imminent passing of Joe Biden, but I don't think we need to be like, I don't know. I hearing the story of the debate, the way Biden actually was when he showed up to the debate. Like obviously we all saw what he was like on camera, but he didn't even get there for prep. He got there like a half hour before the debate started and just thought he was gonna like roll up there and just rock it. And like that's not how anybody does it when you're about to be on like national television of that scale. Like he was still I don't know that was his fault, but it seems like there were still so many people around him that had completely undue levels of confidence in what he was capable of, and he may have been one of them. Right. But also they must have known that he had colon cancer because he was having he was seeing a doctor.
And yeah, this does seem basically like a limited hangout, in my opinion, that it was basically they had to have known, as you said, ahead of time, unlike the train wreck of the debate where we saw basically the emperor was wearing no clothes, essentially, and they couldn't hide it. And that was, I think, a fundamentally different situation in that regard, that they couldn't hide from the public that Biden had been having issues with his age. And there was even a slow leak of more media basically revealing that he had been having more issues, that he'd been going to bed before a certain hour, and just things like that would start to trickle out.
But that was the other thing. I don't mean to like oversell this Ezra Klein interview. Like I'm not a fangirl at all. But they had a lot of interesting. In fact, I'm very skeptical of the abundance book and movement. I haven't read it, to be fair, but I'll call it here, like I called it in our Discord. I think it's going to be like the nemesis of any like left wing presidential candidate in 2028. But they talked a lot about
the next Medicare for all who want it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I think I got too distracted by abundance and I forgot.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, so I think we were talking about how they end up.
I remember the permission structure thing that you were talking about with journalists specifically, because they are two journalists who covered that and were, complicit in that whole cover up. Basically, they kind of talk about that. Right. Like, obviously, they're not going to say as like, but they do kind of like own up in like pretty strong terms for the medium about how much like they and the people around them like knew, and those types of permission structures. And he said like nobody was saying anything because nobody was saying anything and that kind of stuff. So they do talk about like that is a discussion that's happening now, which I don't know what it's worth at this point, but it is interesting to listen to.
Right. I think with a limited hangout, they have the ability to do a controlled release of information, that the information is coming out. It's going to have to come out. But unlike where the gaffes that we saw during the debate that were live and instantly everyone was talking about them and they couldn't hide them, they have the reality of his cancer and they have to release that. They're not going to be able to hide it, but they have the time to prepare the way that they want to release that thing. And that is what happened also with Watergate, with the limited hangout with Bob Woodward, that there was basically Nixon's version of the events and then there was the CIA's version of the events. And Nixon wanted to get his version of the events out, but the CIA fed the line to Bob Woodward before Nixon could get his side out. And so with everything, there's a perspective and there's the reality that the Watergate scandal had happened a year ago. And this thing was going to come out. There was a cover up. So the fact of the matter that it did happen meant they weren't going to be able to completely cover it up, but they were going to be able to control the narrative. And Bob Woodward played a key role in that. And I think that Jake Tapper is meant to play a key role in this controlled release of Biden's prostate cancer, I think was how it was supposed to happen. But as with anything that big, I think it grows legs, and you can see how this narrative spread really quickly. And I think that what we're talking about here in a nuanced way, we're going to show some clips of like Don Jr. and Trump completely twisting this narrative and saying, I don't know, I'm just asking questions. Like, it seems like this was a nefarious cover up. It seems like there's a lot more to this.
That's the complicated part of the feelings, where it's like you absolutely know that they're gonna use this I mean, already there's been like this auto pen discussion, like that's gonna go out of control. I haven't heard any of these clips actually.
Oh, good. Then, yeah, we'll start playing some. So here's the cancer expert saying that this cancer must have happened well before his presidency, even, most likely.
Just obviously incredibly respected. You believe that it is likely, just for those just tuning in, you believe it is likely, if this prostate cancer has spread to the bone, that he could have had it for up to a decade, but certainly it's likely. Would it be fair to say it's likely to have had this for at least several years?
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
So I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you were saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
Well, that doesn't mean he knew that early, though, right? He surely could have had it before he knew.
Yeah, I don't think that is as big a bombshell, honestly, as what people like Trump and Don Jr. are saying about it. I really don't.
But surely he knew by the time he was. Well, do you think? I'm just thinking about, like, if I was in the room where people were deciding whether he was going to run for president again, and we knew he had prostate cancer, aggressive prostate cancer, why would I choose to continue to push him towards running again?
I think it goes back to what we were just talking about with a gerontocracy, that was the risk they were willing to run. We saw it even with FDR in his fourth term. It was a certainty that he was going to die in his fourth term. Everybody knew it. They knew he was going to be reelected, and that's why they meddled in who his vice president was, and it was so critical who was going to be FDR's vice president in the fourth term. Because, yeah, they were all aware that he was going to die. It was almost a certainty with his health. And the same kind of happens. We saw it also with the Soviet Union, and we're seeing it with the DNC, with, as you said, any type of system that is going to be, as you said, like a meritocracy almost, or how did you say it before?
It's like a seniority system.
Yeah, like a seniority-based system. But I think that in itself is going to necessitate cover-ups, and it's going to necessitate basically things like what they did with Bernie, where they had to do trickery behind the scenes. Yeah, with Bernie Sanders, that it's like, you can call us a conspiracy, but we know that on the most critical day, right before Super Tuesday, literally everybody dropped out all at the same time, except for Biden, and they all endorsed Biden, and they said Biden's the only one who could possibly defeat Trump. And as you said, I mean, tying this in, I don't think they were all aware of this, but what do you expect the stories to emerge out of that kind of situation where you have super delegates and you're meddling behind the scenes to stop the actual democratic process from playing out? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think, what do you expect essentially with that? You're inviting conspiracy to fill the air of people's ignorance, essentially, where they don't have an explanation. But it's like, yeah, obviously the guy did have prostate cancer for like 10 years. There's no questioning that.
Yeah.
And there's no questioning the fact that, yeah, everybody did drop out on the exact same time right before Super Tuesday, and only Elizabeth Warren stayed in to split the vote with Bernie Sanders, and how very convenient for that. So it's like, if these things are going to coincidentally happen, and you are going to coincidentally always get the senior most guy who the party is saying, oh, well, it's his turn, then yeah, it's no surprise that you're going to have basically people speculating and wondering, what else were they aware of at this time when they meddled, and assuming the worst. Like, maybe you did know all this horrible stuff and yet you still were willing to, just because the fear of Bernie Sanders winning was really that much of a concern for you.
Yeah, so, and that's all a great point. And I just want to mention, when you first said what they did with Bernie, I did think you were talking about Weekend at Bernie's again, and that's why I said not Sanders.
We got to clarify our Weekend at Bernie analogies and our Bernie would have won analogies.
Yeah, but I do. That does all make sense to me. I wasn't as plugged in on the Bernie conspiracy theories at the time, but that's not even really a conspiracy theory. Like, that's what happened. What else could have happened there? You know?
Yeah, and at some point when you have enough of these events that are in the open that definitely did happen, and you have prostate cancer doctors saying, yeah, if someone is at this stage where it's metastasized to the bone, they've had it for a decade. Yeah, that's irrefutable evidence at that point that there were definitely some people in rooms. Maybe it was just Joe and Jill in private getting a diagnosis with their doctor. But without question, there were people who were aware that he had prostate cancer at the time that he was the president. And that, to me, is not even the most nefarious thing by any stretch of the imagination of the meddling that's gone on. So I think that this is really a non-scandal, in my opinion. But it's similar to the last episode, and Butler said about Tom Homan, what do you expect when, like, every once in a while, Tom Homan's going to get something right when he says that the conditions of the ICE facilities are better than some New Jersey. If your side has been on the side of just letting the infrastructure dilapidate and decay for like decades and decades, and not improving it, and not fighting for immigrants, and not fighting for more humane prison conditions and things like that, if your side is just letting this status quo dissolve, essentially, then what do you really expect at this point? You're going to have people coming out and complaining.
Letting the status quo dissolve while also, like, simultaneously, like, defending the status quo somehow at the same time, like, rhetorically. Like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah, right. Always basically speaking out of both sides of their mouth, which at this point is just, nobody believes you anymore. And you open the door for cynical people like Donald Trump Jr. to invite his own criticism that's based in a grain of truth, is in bad faith, unlike the two of us trying to discuss what might have gone on behind the scenes and giving it the benefit of the doubt, which you're lucky that we're doing this, Joe Biden. We're trying to give you the benefit of the doubt.
And we know you do listen.
We know you do listen. But Yeah, the fact of the matter is that other people do not give you the benefit of the doubt, and you're filling these positions purely out of seniority when you weren't actually the strongest candidate. And there was 1,001 reasons why you should not have been running for president that you were aware of, like having cancer. Shame on you. Shame on you. You should not have been running for president. You should have given the position up to someone who is healthier. I mean, Bernie had a heart attack, but I mean, I suppose in everybody's defense, you are the only one who can make your own assessment about your health and how long you think you're going to be able to make it. And so perhaps this is really a non-issue, that if Joe Biden thought that he was going to survive one term, then who really cares that he had prostate cancer?
Is that why he was calling himself a transitional candidate? Did he think he wasn't going to make it?
Maybe. It is a thing that I think at a time like this is worth talking about, that prostate cancer in older men is incredibly common and often isn't really dealt with because it's so common. That at a certain age in your life, doctors make the calculus that most people are going to get prostate cancer, but they can't operate without it being really invasive unless they expect that you're going to actually live to be a certain age. So for most people, by the time that they find they have prostate cancer, hopefully they're not going to live another 10 or 20 years anyway, and the doctors decide not to do anything about it because they don't expect them to live 20 years anyway.
Yeah, okay. And this is something I remember hearing about when I was visiting my grandparents at their retirement village once. I remember some old person or another telling me about that. But like a lot of times people are diagnosed with prostate cancer, but they're old and they're so old and the prostate cancer grows slowly enough that they just never treat it, basically, because they assume you're going to die first. But this one sounds like it does grow faster than that, maybe.
Yeah, and I think there's different kinds, but I think that a former president having prostate cancer is definitely a good time to have that conversation, that it is really common, and that is one of the conditions that just happens to men as they get older. Like almost every man ends up with prostate cancer. It's just one of the ways that you tend to break down.
So what can men do about it? What's the PSA?
The PSA, I think, is get your butt checked.
That's good. That's important. That's important advice.
Yeah, very important. And I think there's also like hereditary stuff too. But
get your butt checked, get your genes checked.
Get your butt checked, get your genes checked, know about your genes. And then also, now I think is a good time to move on to Donald Trump complaining about the auto pen.
Oh, God.
And starting these rumors that somebody is not telling the facts, is the quote that went popular.
And I didn't even know he said this.
Do you want to respond to President Biden being diagnosed with cancer? Are you going to call your predecessor?
I think it's very sad, actually. I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago, because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. I just had my physical. You saw that. You saw the results of that particular test. I think that test is standard to pretty much anybody getting a physical, good physical. We had the doctors at the White House and over at Walter Reed, which is a fantastic hospital. I do it. I did a very complete physical, including cognitive tests. I'm proud to announce I aced it. Got them all. I got them all right.
Makes it about himself.
You proud of me? Yes. Your husband would be proud of me for getting them all right. It's a little risk. If I didn't get them all right, these people would be after me. It would be not a good situation. But I think, frankly, anybody running for president should take a cognitive test. They say it's unconstitutional, but I would say in that particular case, having a cognitive test wouldn't be so bad. But when you take tests, medical, as a male, that test is very standard. I don't know if it's given to everybody, but it's given just about. And it takes a long time to get to that situation. Now, I think, to get to a stage 9, I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, he said, if it's the same doctor, he said there was nothing wrong there. and that's being proven to be a sad situation. And the auto pen is becoming a very big deal. You know, the auto pen is becoming a big deal because it seems like that maybe was the president who ever operated the auto pen. But when they say that that was not good, they also, you know, you have to look and you have to say then the test was not so good either. In other words, there are things going on that the public wasn't informed, and I think somebody's going to have to speak to his doctor, if it's the same, or even if it's two separate doctors. Why wasn't the cognitive ability, why wasn't that discussed? And I think the doctor said he's just fine, and it's turned out that's not so. It's very dangerous. Look, this is no longer politically correct. This is dangerous for our country. Look at the mess we're in. You're talking about all these questions on Ukraine and Russia that would have never happened. As an example, if I were president, would have never happened. The other thing is you have to say, why did it take so long? I mean, when this takes a long time, can take years to get to this level of danger. So it's a very, very sad situation, and I feel very badly about it. And I think people should try and find out what happened, because I'll tell you, I don't know if it had anything to do with the hospital. Walter Reed is really good. They're some of the best doctors I've ever seen. I don't even know if they were involved, but a doctor was involved in each case. Maybe it was the same doctor, and somebody is not telling the facts. That's a big problem.
Yeah.
I can't stand this. He has to bring up Ukraine every time that anybody asks him any old thing. Like what?
Yeah, right. He brings up Ukraine. He brings up how he aced his cognitive test and how fit he is, which nobody believes.
Also, who's out here saying it's unconstitutional to take a cognitive test? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I've never heard that. Just a classic lie that he pulls out from nowhere.
Many people are saying it's unconstitutional.
Many people are saying. Yeah, so I think we could move on to some of the Doge cuts and the consequences of that, or we could talk about the Middle East and all the horrible things going on there.
Oh, God.
Or we could potentially wrap this up pretty soon because we're getting close to the end.
Okay, well, actually, can I just suggest that we take a moment to celebrate the fact that Elon is officially out?
Yeah. I'd love to celebrate at the end that Elon Musk is a loser.
Yeah.
Total loser. Complete loser.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable how much of a loser he is.
Yeah. Now, I don't think for a second that he's not going to be funding like super PACs and stuff anymore. But the fact that he can't,
of course not.
He can't even say he's doing it or put his face on any of those because his name is such political poison is like very satisfying.
Very funny.
Love it.
And I've got a good video of him trying to deny that he actually did all that stuff. But in the meantime, while we load that, I want to laugh at what a loser he is with this little hats joke thing that he had. Did you hear that?
Well, Mr. President, they say I wear a lot of hats. It's true. Even my hat has a hat.
I don't understand what's happening because I'm watching the Humanist Report guy talking, but then I keep hearing 2 seconds.
Ignore that for now. I was playing that on my other music player because I'm so high tech here that I've got multiple things going. But here we're about to start the Elon clip that we wanted to do with him talking about his trying to deny that he did a Nazi salute, which nobody can take seriously with a straight face.
Try to claim that I was a Nazi because of some random hand gesture at a rally where all I said was that my heart goes out to you, and I was talking about space travel. And yet the legacy media promoted that as though that was a deliberate Nazi gesture, when in fact every politician, any public speaker who's spoken for any length of time has made the exact same gesture. And yet there's still people out there, and I've never harmed a single person.
No, listen, you know what, Elon? I wasn't.
Now you asked for an example.
I wasn't even going to talk to you about it because, in fact, I know a number of people who are close to you, and I called them afterwards, and all of them, to a person, were like, "No way, no way."
Of course not.
There's video And you're talking about taking a still frame sometimes of a person holding their arm
Yeah,
up.
or like waving.
No, we have video of you doing it twice in a row.
There's no out of context to take it. Like he finished his speech, then he pounded his chest and then put his hand up. It's so stupid. Oh, actually, every public speaker has done that. Actually, now that I think about it a little more. So
yeah, every public speaker says my heart goes out to you and does that gesture twice.
In that exact way.
It's obvious.
Ugh.
It's very obvious.
Yeah, the hats thing. I'm sorry that my audio keeps cutting out and stuff, but like he's just never gonna stop. He's just never gonna give up on doing jokes like that. Like this is like he learned nothing from Let That Sink In. He's tripling down. Like this is who he is. He can't help it. Apparently, I wish he would.
Yeah. Yeah, he can't help it at all. And there's a good clip, again, of that Harry guy, I think, that Harry Entman.
Enton, yeah.
That, Enton, thank you. Where he ends up saying, basically, that Elon Musk, he points out, now, this past month had 0 mentions with the president, which was a huge change from like 30 a month basically at the start of this second administration, and now he has been completely silent about him on Truth Social, which is really interesting. And then we also have a funny video of him denying that the South African government has worked in his favor to help secure a government contract for him, and he was using the fact that it took a little bit longer as part of that narrative that there's a white genocide going on in South Africa.
White genocide is when my business is slightly inconvenienced by black people.
Yeah, my business application was slightly inconvenienced, and technically I'm not supposed to be able to own a business, but I managed to find an exception because obviously I'm Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And that inconvenience that I had to find an exception is the proof of the white genocide that isn't taking place now, but has the potential to be taking place. And that's a serious threat if that should take place.
And we didn't even talk about that meeting. I don't think we're going to have time for it. But with the, is he the president or the prime minister of South Africa? Or something else?
He's the president. They have presidents there.
He came to meet with Trump for, I don't know if this was pre-scheduled or if it had to do with the whole like refugee thing or what, but Trump came at him with a clip compilation right at the front of the meeting. You have a clip of that?
Yeah, I'm hoping to show that one, definitely. And I think I do have that clip. Hang on.
I watched most of it
really
live,
funny.
and something that doesn't necessarily come through in the clips that I did want to mention, I have heard other people say it, is he had, obviously the president of South Africa is black. Some of the officials, actually most of them also are black, but that farm minister who was there with them is a white man. And then they also had some like famous South African golfers present. Elon was not there, I don't think, but it was like really there was a very stark difference in the way that Trump acted when white South Africans were speaking to him versus black South Africans. Like he was not really listening to understand when black officials were talking to him, including the president. But then when the farm minister spoke, when the golfers spoke, like that was when he was keyed in and really like considering what they were saying. Which is, again, not surprising, but it was really, like, interesting to see in such a stark way.
Yeah, we've got a few clips, I think, before we round it out. Hopefully we can try to get in, because there's a good one, I think, that was Marco Rubio, related to what you were just saying, and I think his name was Tim Kaine, I believe, ends up reaming out Marco Rubio and explaining very well the situation in South Africa and showing that there's definitely no way to consider it a genocide,
I want to
as
see
he
that.
says. And I think that that's really relevant. Hopefully this is the right one.
I think those 49 people that came certainly felt they were persecuted, and they've passed every sort of check mark that had to be checked off in terms of meeting the requirements for that. They live in a country where farms are taken and land is taken on a racial basis.
Okay. Do you think they're more persecuted than Uyghurs or Rohingyas, or more persecuted than political dissidents in Cuba or Venezuela or Nicaragua, are more persecuted than those who would be threatened should they be returned to Afghanistan by violence by the Taliban?
Well, the problem we face there is the volume problem, okay? If you look at all the persecuted people of the world, it's millions of people. They can't all come here. And we had refugee programs.
So why prioritize Afrikaner farmers?
Well, because it's a small subset, it's a new issue, and the president identified it as a problem and wanted to use it as an example. But that's different from having these refugee programs that were basically spending money to put people up in communities and accommodate them, and it was acting as a magnet. Millions of people enter the country illegally, and today the border is sealed.
Let me challenge you, and I'm just going to say for the public, if you want to understand about the, quote, persecution of Afrikaner farmers, go look at the composition of the South African government. Since July of 2024, there's a government of national unity. And the opposition party to the ANC, the Afrikaner Party, the Democracy Alliance, is part of the governing coalition. They joined the governing coalition a year ago, and the leader of that party was given the remit of Agriculture Minister, John Steenhuisen. He is the leader of the former Afrikaner Party, still widely representing Afrikaners. He is the Minister of Agriculture in South Africa right now. I assert that this claim that there's persecution of Afrikaner farmers is completely specious. Are you aware ever during the apartheid era in South Africa, did the United States establish a special program to allow South African blacks who were treated as second-class citizens in the apartheid program?
Great question.
No, because I was probably in ninth grade.
Nice little cop-out. He says, no, because I was probably in ninth grade.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that is how that works. We don't have a written language. We haven't invented that yet. So there's really no way to know what happened before you existed or whatever. And I just want to also say, I know it's not entirely the point of this, although it's related, but the way that he's, first of all, just the general sentiment of like, no, obviously we can't take refugees from anywhere because then there's just too many of them and like that's like very antithetical to American values just right there. But also to lump in people from Afghanistan in there, who are like the vast majority of them would be coming to here as refugees because they helped the U.S. while we were attacking their country. Like, that's f***ed up.
Right. Yeah, and that's not an excuse to let them in.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just this imposed scarcity that we put on people.
Yeah, also we could fit millions of people. Like, I don't, like, we have a lot of land. Like, a lot of it's empty.
Yeah, and it's just impossible to deny at this point what the actual metric is.
Yeah.
What the qualifier is for why we want to let some people in at this time, because it just undermines the whole case that they're making about our immigration policy at this time, that we just can't simply fit any more. There's no more room for anybody else, and we're already struggling to fit any as it is. And the same thing happened earlier with the H-1B visas incident too, that it really undermines your whole argument of saying, oh, we need to impose all this scarcity and there's not enough to go around. There's not enough land here or resources. You're just undercutting your own argument.
Yes.
And I think that another place that maybe we can leave it is the interview with the South African president. His name is President Ramaphosa, and President Trump says a similar conspiracy theory that's pretty similar to his Haitians eating the cats and dogs line.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Yeah, and so it's really a similar rumor that's been spread in response. This rumor's been around for a while of white genocide in South Africa, because South Africa is kind of seen as like the of liberalism, the idea of like Mandela and the Rainbow Coalition type liberalism, the idea that the whole world was going to move towards democratic society nice and peacefully, and Mandela symbolizes that. And so I think South Africa has always been in the mind of a fascist who hates the idea of ethnic equality. It's always been a fearful experiment. Yeah. And the idea, as Tim Kaine said in that video, explaining their coalition government that was formed after apartheid and sharing power, this is really very similar to the Soviet Union, what's been called the affirmative action empire by some scholars. The Soviet Union and Yugoslavia is another great example of this, where you have a state that for the first time in history looks out for its ethnic minorities and actually creates a power system for them to exercise within their state. And as Tim Kaine said, in South Africa, you have where it was formerly owned by mostly white European colonial descendants, and still to this day, over 70% of the land is owned by only 7% of the population who is white. So you have this massive disparity in land ownership and property concentration that is going to have to be solved by government regulation. And so this is naturally terrifying to the reactionary right, free market, libertarian types who recognize this as sort of the proto example of a state to be afraid of right now, doing this experimentation.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you have the very important detail of why these reactionary lies have festered so much, even though they've been around for a long time, motivated by the same fear of white replacement theory, the idea that essentially this is the government to be afraid of, when a minority party who's actually a majority of the people, like I said, only 7% of the population is white. So it's funny to describe the blacks as the minority when they're upwards of 90% of the population, likely to refer to them as a minority, but the political minority who is disenfranchised, gaining any amount of power, and that is described as a white genocide in and of itself, any amount of concession to that original apartheid government that they had, or any amount of solution to try to break up those monopolies, which have to be broken up and would have to be broken up anywhere that had the same conditions.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think up until this discussion, like in the media about South Africa and like watching this meeting and stuff, I had almost thought of it as like a closed book in terms of like, okay, yeah, they had apartheid and they're a great inspirational story of how they got rid of it. And they, you know, they did get rid of apartheid, but they also, like, the inequalities that they promised to address and have not yet addressed are now sort of rearing their head again in this really dumb up way.
Yeah, and it's still a struggle.
Yeah.
And I've heard that this president got in around 2018 and then COVID hit, and he did run on a promise to do more in terms of social equality. And also all this freaking out is over a proposed bill that just passed but hasn't actually happened. But they're saying that there's going to be land redistribution. And so that inherently is stroking the imaginations of these reactionaries and saying that any amount of land redistribution is tantamount to genocide. And this ties in with the other key part that South Africa played a key role in bringing Israel before the ICC and the ICJ for war crimes. And they've been making the argument that Israel is responsible for an actual genocide. And in this case, it's hard to argue that that's not the case, because where you have in South Africa, you actually have a one-state solution that really exists there with a power sharing agreement. And you can't actually say that this minority group of 7% who owns practically all the land, you can't possibly say that they're being exploited. But what the reactionary right is trying to say is that by having to redistribute some of that 70% land in a very slow process,
and paying
that's
them for
the
it,
same
right?
as ethnic cleansing, and the same as like forced relocation.
Yeah.
Where many people on the left would say you can't force a group of people to relocate off of land, and that is true in the case of the Palestinians.
Yeah.
But in the case of people who own 70% of the land when they're only 7% of the population, come on, get out of here. Of course you can redistribute some of that land, and you're going to have to.
Also, everything I've heard is that, like, actually anything that they've done so far, and even the stuff that's technically the bill would allow them to do something that's akin to, like, eminent domain here, but they still, like, by all accounts, are planning on trying to do most of these deals, like, with compensating people for the land and having the transactions be voluntary.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like very slow, very voluntary, just like with Elon Musk, like complaining that he can't get his deal worked out with South Africa and his stupid internet company.
It sounds like a pretty easy solution for that.
He's complaining, and it's like they worked out the deal for you so they could get your stupid internet there. And like, what are you getting so worked up about? And it's just, again, that minor inconvenience that he had to wait a little extra because of the process taking place right now in South Africa is trying to have some sort of retributive justice. And that in itself is an inconvenience and an injustice to white people, apparently. It's exactly the same as being forcefully relocated off of your ancestors' territory.
Yeah. Like, with great amounts of, like, bloodshed and atrocities. Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, as opposed to, like, a government giving you power, asking you slowly, like, I'll pay you the market value. I'll pay you above the market value. Please just get off the land. I'll still make sure you have 50% of the land, just not 70%.
How dare you?
It's all incremental.
Honestly, that sounds like ethnic cleansing to me. So,
and we can end it with this funny moment of Trump with the South African president claiming that there's a genocide taking place. God.
Those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can take land.
And then when they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
nothing happens to them.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now
the farmers are black. The farmers are not black. I don't say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black. And the people that are being killed in large numbers, and you saw all those grave sites, and those are people that loved ones going, I guess on a Sunday morning, they told me, to pay respect to their loved ones that were killed. Their heads chopped off. They died violently. And we're here to talk about it, and I didn't know we'd get involved here, but I will say this, that if the news wasn't fake, like NBC, which is fake news, totally, one of the worst, ABC, NBC, CBS, horrible, but if they weren't fake news like this jerk that we have here, if we had real reporters, they'd be covering it, but the fake news in this country doesn't talk about that. They don't want to talk about it, but now they have to talk about it. But they won't. This won't even be a subject. They'll have him talking about why did a country give a free, think of this, why did a country give an airplane to the United States Air Force? Okay? The United States, not to me, to the United States Air Force, so they could help us out, because we need an Air Force One until that's Air Force One, it's being built. 2 of them being built. But Boeing's a little bit late, unfortunately. So why did they give us a plane to the United States Air Force? That's what that idiot talks about after viewing a thing where thousands of people are dead.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish I did. I take it. I would take it. If your country offered the United States Air Force a plane, I would take it.
Okay.
That was so good. I'm sorry I don't have a plane to give you.
And of course, Trump takes that seriously and thinks that he's actually trying to offer him a plane, which is funny. And I do love, we keep adding one more. I know we got to round it out. I do love this growing sense of like feudalistic nationalism that's emerging around the plane. And you have infighting with the Qatari plane that some people like Ben Shapiro and Laura Loomer have voiced their discontent with Trump accepting this plane, most likely because it's coming from an Arab nation and not from Israel.
Yeah.
But they are upset about that, and it's forming kind of a rift within the conservative media sphere and forcing people to take sides, essentially, against Trump's decision whether to accept this private jet or not. And the defense that we're hearing is amounting to essentially people defending the king needing to be adorned with the finest gold and silver, but now in the modern case, because we're living in a time with $400 million super jets that they're calling luxury palaces in the sky. And so you have an emerging group of people saying that essentially Air Force One is trash and that the king shouldn't be caught dead in that thing, and that he really should be decked out with a plane that's solid gold. And we really need Air Force One to be pimped out in order to match up with the nation's level of esteem, because the president flying around in some garbage plane like Air Force One is really a drag on our image as a country, and we really ought to look better. And that's kind of the case that Donald Trump has made multiple times with this plane, saying, there's a funny tweet here. This will probably be where I end it. He says, so the fact that the Defense Department is getting a gift free of charge for a 747 aircraft to replace the 40-year-old Air Force One temporarily in a very public and transparent transaction so bothers the crooked Democrats that they insist we pay top dollar for the plane. Anybody can do that. The Dems are world-class losers. MAGA. And I can hear Butler saying, well, that's true right there with the Dems are world-class losers.
It is true.
That much we would agree with that.
It is funny. He clearly got so mad at that reporter for asking that question. He kept on bringing it up over and over and over and over again. Like, it is clear he wants people to stop talking about this. So I didn't really care about it, but it does make me a little more invested that it seems to be such a sore spot for Trump. But
I do have that clip ready to go, and it's short. It's a YouTube short for Butler.
Mr. President, what do you say to people who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you? Why not leave it behind?
You're ABC fake news, right?
Why not?
Only ABC. Well, a few of you would. Let me tell you, you should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us. I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much. You know, there was an old golfer named Sam Snead. Did you ever hear him? He won 82 tournaments. He was a great golfer. And he had a motto, when they give you a putt,
Palmer schlong.
You say, thank you very much, you pick up your ball and you walk to the next hole. A lot of people are stupid. They say, no, I insist on putting it. Then they putt it and they miss it. And their partner gets angry at them. You know what? Remember that, Sam Snead. When they give you a putt, you pick it up and you walk to the next hole and you say, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Grandpa.
Yeah, and so, when Donald Trump gives you a putt, you pick it up, you say respectfully, thank you very much. That's the show.
Yeah, that's not even the only... the one that I was thinking of happened in the room with it was like the first question that he got was about the plane, and that's why he was talking about it, because he could not stop talking about how angry he was at this one guy. Every time it comes up, he's so pissed. I watch as little of Trump as I can outside of like these news updates, and like when Hassan is like watching him live, sometimes I even actually dip out on that because it's like I hate watching him talk. But it is always really fun to see. It's scary in its own way, but it is fun to see him like just get really pissed that he's not getting entirely softball questions. Like I do sometimes take great joy in that.
Yeah, right. No matter how many people they can fill that press room, I mean that White House cesspool with, they just can't seem to fill it with enough Tim Pools to fill the cesspool.
Thank God there's not more Tim
White
Pools
House
in
press
this world.
pool, cesspool.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a good place to end it. Probably.
Yeah, that's a good place that we can leave it. And we'll talk next week.
All right. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Join the Patreon.
Happy Memorial Day, everybody. Enjoy.
Okay, bye.
In terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future.
And why is that?
I think I've done enough.